sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. This week we are joined by a legend in so many different fields. Former president of the WNBA, a senior executive of the PGA in golf. Now the CEO and founder of Generation W, empowering the next generation of women, and currently the commissioner of Maccabi Basketball Collective. We're very excited to introduce you to my new friend, Donna Orender. Donna, it's so great to have you.
Hello, Rabbi Eris. How are you?
I love getting to know you over this last year, especially what you're doing in the sports world. But as we talk about, we don't talk about box scores or trade deadlines. We like to talk about what's in the heart and soul and getting to know you. There's a lot in there in the heart and soul that has led, I know, to the court and to the field and to empowering women as well. So let's actually start. There's so many different ways to start. I actually want to start with the, as we say in Hebrew, the chol, the ordinary, and then go to the kodesh, which is the sacred. And so let's just start with the journey to sports. And why do you love the ball? And there's so many different balls, golf balls and tennis balls and basketballs. What is, as you call, the magic of the ball that has led you, as you also have said, to just be a kid and play the games?
You know, it's funny. That's what I just love to play. I just love to play. I found that I love to compete. And it filled my sense of self up in a way that felt great. I loved being out there, testing my physical, not only my physical skills, but my mental abilities as well. And just so I just could never get enough. It didn't matter. Like you said, it could be hockey, softball, basketball, track, volleyball. I loved them all. Tennis.
And so you love them all, but you chose basketball as, if you wish, the sport for literally a profession. What was it about the basketball that really had led you to that path? And then we'll go backward.
Actually, I thought I actually had chosen tennis first. And I did pretty well. I excelled as a youngster. I was seen as somebody who had future. Coaches wanted to, coach me, which was great. But ultimately, what I loved about basketball, I loved it was a team sport. Now, I believe that life is a team sport, and I knew that I'm not, even though when I'm competing in tennis, I was by myself, there were people behind me, but this idea, excuse me, of connecting while you play, right? That pass, that movement, there was this algebraic almost thing that happens in basketball. I don't know, it spoke to me, and it still does.
And so let's go to the faith journey for a moment. How did you grow up in the Jewish tradition, and what was so meaningful about that? Because later on, we'll talk about how you now are in the intersection of those two worlds.
Yeah, listen, my family was a conservative Jewish family growing up in New York. Very much a part of my life, whether it was Hebrew school or being part of the choir or any of the other activities. I loved being at our shul. It was really fun. I had lots of friends there, and it's something obviously that stayed with me. My dad recently passed, but before he did, it was his 90th birthday, and we wanted to do a Oneg Shabbat for him at the synagogue. And I called our rabbi and said, "Rabbi, I know this is not usual, but if you would, I'd like to just say a few things to my dad on his birthday from the Bima." And he goes, "Make it short." I said, "I'll be short." And it's funny, when I thought about it, the thing that I said to him, the name of our synagogue here in Florida is Bethel, the house of God. And I realized that that's the gift my dad gave me.
Wow.
He gave me Bethel. And Bethel was under the dining room table of my grandparents' house for any of the holidays, right? Bethel was when my head was on his shoulder as the last calling of Yom Kippur and the gates were closing. And Bethel was a synagogue I invited him to join me in Florida, and his love for that. He gave me this incredible gift and appreciation through our family of Bethel. And it's always stayed with me. Always stayed. And it's with me now. It's a gift that I have chosen with my husband to give to our kids. And I only hope that it impacts them as positively as my dad did for me in this way.
And so you say Bethel, house of God. Where is that located on the court and in the field? Are there those commonalities and similar spaces that you feel the same way? As my mom likes to say, in the synagogue, you get to play and pray. In fact, she told me that you should make the kids play first in the synagogue before you pray. What does it look like?
Actually, you do play and pray too. You're always praying that you're going to do well enough. You're always praying that you're not going to let your coach down. You're going to pray that you don't let yourself down, that you can do and be more for your teammates as well. But I think, when you commit yourself to play at a certain level, and even if you don't, just whatever level that is good for you or even a little more for you, I think there's this sense of spiritual calling. How much can I do? And I really do believe we can do much more than we give ourselves credit for. And that's one of the things I learned playing at an elite level. That's what I think that I take to work in the business world or any kind of project I take on, that there is this ability for us to ask more from ourselves. And I will say this, that I don't want to sound a little Pollyanna-ish, but I see miracles everywhere. I really do. I see the beauty in the mundane and the everyday, which doesn't make them mundane or everyday. But I truly do see and feel in the world around me such specialness and gifts.
And so I want to go back to one of the miracles that happened in your life, which was while you were younger, and it was about tennis, and there was no place for a young woman to play tennis. This is part of a small TED Talk that you did. I encourage everybody to watch that. It's called Fear Not to Ask, and we'll just watch 30 seconds of it.
Girls played sports. My first love, actually, tennis. My grandmother thought it was okay. So if it was okay for her, it was okay for me. I was good enough to be noticed by U.S. national coaches, but I was not good enough to play on my high school tennis team. Why? There was no girls' high school tennis team. I didn't let that bother me. I'm like, I'm not going to worry about why not playing. I'm going to why not play? So I decided I'd go up to the coach. You know that guy. You've seen him. He's like a spark plug of a man. He's a former Marine. His crew cut is cut so tight and gray, and if he leans over, the spikes of his head will pierce your heart. And he held my heart in his hand.
He held my heart. I love that. And so going to there was such a Jewish thing. You asked the question. And in fact, it's just coming off the Passover. You titled the talk, Fear Not the Ask. Fear not asking questions. What gave you this word that we use on this show a lot, the chutzpah, to make that ask that propelled you in a way that you're here today?
Yeah, it's funny. I ask myself that a lot. Where did that come from? Where did that come? Listen, I have to say it came from my parents. My mother's not afraid to ask anything. As a matter of fact, when people ask, what is your favorite piece of advice? I always quote my mom. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's a classic Jewish mom, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. So you better ask. And it's funny because the talks I do today in businesses, motivation around the country, I do a thing on why not, the why not mindset. And one of the first things they say is, why not ask questions? And you realize that as you get older, there's a lot of pressure in asking questions. There's a lot of pressure to not ask questions, right? There's peer pressure. There's individual insecurities that come out. Questions, and yet, one of the best things we can do in terms of exploration and adventure and discovery is to continue to ask questions. And it's not the first question. It's the second, the third, the fourth. That's revelatory. So I still think that that's really important. And do not fear, even though we have been given reason to fear.
Yes, again, that's a very Passover question. It's obviously on our mind. And it's interesting, my wife, Rabbi Nicole Guzik, gave the sermon on Passover, specifically about the hostages, and specifically about Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, where his mother said that he told the other hostages, what is your why? And if you have a why, then you can have a how. And it reminded me that question a lot when researching your journey, that you found that why or why not, and then you're able to find that how. And one of those why nots was moving up the ladder of sports to the PGA level, but then being asked to move into the field of women's sports for the WNBA. Take us through that why not into the how, and why you decided to make a jump into a world that wasn't as exciting as it is today into women's sports, and how you have made those changes.
The why not? So when I got the call, I worked at the PGA Tour, men's professional golf, for a long time. And I actually started there when that wasn't as exciting as it is today as well. And I felt fortunate that I had a chance in helping to build that property and also receive tremendous amount of support in that effort. So when the phone rang, it was Adam Silver, currently the commissioner of the NBA. We were friends for a long time prior to that. They told me they were looking to make a change. and would I be interested? And I had a relationship with the NBA. Clearly, I had played professional basketball. I played in the first women's professional league in history, had made history by playing in the first women's game ever at Madison Square Garden.
Nice.
And, the question was, it wasn't like, yes, I'm going to immediately do that. I had to really think. My family was based in Florida. My husband's business was in Florida. I had young children, all of those things. And then it was, why not? So I made a list of all the whys. It didn't get me anywhere. When I said, why not? Then I jumped, right? There are not many jobs like this, especially for women in the sports industry. I had been given so much. For those, much are given, right? Much is expected. And so therefore, I felt it was my turn to really try to give back and see if I can contribute what I had learned and accomplished in the golf world and take it over to women's sports.
And when you left the WNBA, what are 2 things that now exist that we know of because you decided to do that? Why not?
Well, it's here. How about that? Every single day I was told the league was not going to exist, right? It's going to, if you invested this much money, would you continue to do that? Every single day. There was this constant noise of this is not going to be successful. And I learned, and it's funny, I did had a conversation yesterday. They said, what did you learn? I learned how to cut out the noise. I learned how to stay focused on what was important, what was mission focused. And then all the things we said we couldn't do, we did. Right? You're not going to be able to raise sponsorship. We did. You're not going to be able to sell more tickets. We did. You're not going to be able to build attendance. We did. You're not going to be able to build a digital platform. We did. Everything that they said we couldn't do, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to be here. We are.
And what do people like a Caitlin Clark, a Maya Moore, people who use that platform to actually make the world, if you wish, the platform for Tikkun Olam? What have you seen for basketball's ability to do that since your time with the WNBA?
I think, interestingly enough, I came out of the PGA Tour. We raised, I think now it's probably $2 billion. They're built on helping change communities and really add to elevating all of through charitable efforts. The NBA was much more of a social enterprise, social justice enterprise, and so I always admire what Adam and David, the athletes, were able to do in terms of elevating our social conscience around human rights and efforts. And, the debate then, is there a line that you can cross where you turn off fans? How much do they really want? I just want to watch sport. I don't need to be socially educated. But on the other hand, sports gives us this sense of borrowed equity, borrowed superpowers, borrowed belief, over and above our ability to just be a fan and want to commune with other fans, right? There is that personal interaction when we watch our favorite athletes to see what they can do. And we think about those things. So I think in many ways, when the Magic Johnson issue happened, I remember that was a big, big thing when he had AIDS and how David and the league stood up behind that. It's important. And you can see today how important many of those things are.
So let's talk about somebody that we have in common. That's Coach Bruce Pearl, because you say it's important. And what he did a couple of weeks ago, I believe, was heroic. Outside of the political realm, the fact that he says 10 million people who watch an NCAA tournament will know the name Idan Alexander. What did that mean for Coach Pearl to do that and say, my players gave me permission to do that? What does that mean in that moment?
Listen, I wrote him a text, probably like you did too. I said, Bruce, thank you for standing up for all of us. It's great courage, right? To not only ask questions, but to make statements as well, especially in a world that's quick to cancel and quick to judge. And that has repercussions. And Bruce is showing us that you can get to a place where you can be who you are and say what you say on behalf in a positive way for people. That has really great impact. And so I'm grateful to Bruce Pearl.
It's actually interesting after he did that, and then that game against Michigan, Tracy Wolfson took 30 seconds during her sidelines to introduce the Alexander family. And I also reached out to her saying, thank you for taking those 30 seconds. And the response I got from Tracy Wolfson was, Idan Alexander is from my hometown in New Jersey. It meant everything for me to do that. And so that was actually my fear, not the ask, because
I love that. Well, what's so great is I love Tracy, and I recently got inducted into her hometown's New Jersey State Sports Hall of Fame, and she conducted it. She did she did the service, if you will.
But it was amazing because fear not the ask, I asked, and she said, no, it means even more to me than it meant to you. And that's what I love about this platform that I've established the last 2 years. When I ask people like you these questions, they do pour out that heart and soul. And you told me when you entered this world that it's become, or you've been quoted as saying, it's a spiritual homecoming. And so in 3 years, when my daughter, God willing, is ready to go to college and her sights in the WNBA, what do you want to see the WNBA have that it's missing now that we can empower young girls to do?
Well, listen, I just like to see it grow, right? I'd like to see it be, I'd like to have more teams, which are coming, right? I think there's probably a lineup for at least, that's not yet announced, but at least 7 or 8 years, there'll be a stream of new teams coming on board. I'd like to see the continued growth and depth of growth and acceptance around women in sports, which would also come with additional investment. I heard a great fact the other day, Rabbi. You'd appreciate this. I went to a CNBC thing at the Final Four, the women's Final Four. And they said, women's sports now are valued between $1 and $4 billion. It sounds like a lot of money, a lot more than it's ever been. Men's sports are valued at between 500 and 750 billion.
Wow.
So we have a gap that we're working to fill.
And actually, when you talk about that, one of those teams was UCLA in the Final Four. I love Coach Carrie Close out here. And I don't know if you saw this article by Lauren Betts about her mental health struggles during the Final Four on ESPN and her ability to share her strength of her struggles on this platform, which will encourage young people to also share their struggles, which will then lead to achievements. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I haven't seen it. I'm a big fan of both of them. It was funny how everybody was so hard on UCLA. Of course, Annie Myers-Drysdale is one of my dearest friends. She's also a partner with me in this new women's professional basketball league that we have just launched. And so, of course, for Annie, I'm going to be going to UCLA. Our other partner is Cheryl Miller. And I wasn't happy that USC was in it, but between the two of them, I'm right between the two of them. What were we going to do? And it really spoke to, I thought, the unbelievable executional excellence of Connecticut. When they more than demolished UCLA, they also really took South Carolina to task.
Yep.
I'm just telling you that it was unbelievable basketball. Yes, would we want closer games? Yes. Did the men's this year have an exceptional tournament that went to the end of every game? Yes. But there was just some excellent basketball, and congratulations and hats off to Gino and his team, because unbelievable.
I was actually proud to take my own children to the UCLA South Carolina game when Carrie Close beat Dawn Staley early in December, and it was packed, not a seat available in Pauley Pavilion. Really a tribute to Coach Close, UCLA, and women's athletics as well.
Totally.
And so I want to transition first to Generation W and then to Maccabi Sports Collective, which is the way that we met and connected here at Sinai Temple.
Yes.
Generation W, so you leave the sports world to empower women even further. Tell us a little about that vision of empowering women and young people. You just had a big conference in Jacksonville. I just said offline that we would love to do something in Los Angeles with our schools and with our synagogue. How do you do that today in a world sometimes where then empowerment is not promoted as much as it should be?
Well, Generation W started when I left the WNBA. I knew that what I had learned about women and girls and how the world felt about us was something that was near and dear to my heart. And therefore something I wanted to try to stay close to as I moved into the next part of my life, both personal and professional. And ended up coming up with this concept called Generation W, which is about educating, inspiring, connecting women. And because what I found was that there's phenomenal women all over the world, and women bring special talents and skills and expertise and elevate the communities in which they live. And in a world where it's all about talent, in terms of competing, then we owe it to ourselves to make sure we develop talent in the best way that we can, bring it together, join together. Remember, when we launched, we are all Generation W. Yes, women and men, we are all Generation W. We can move forward together. And so it was a national thought. It started as a thought leadership event in Jacksonville, Florida, where people thought, well, maybe there's not much thought leadership experience here, but people didn't think the WNBA would make it later. So those things are not daunting to me. It's like, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll figure out something else. But it was enormously successful from the outset. I had taken everything that I had learned and kind of put it in a place whereby I didn't have a board of directors. I basically had me and 2 friends, and 700 people showed up in year
Wow.
one. 700. Wow. And we just had year 14. Our theme was explore. People can check our newsletter under Generation W, generationwnow.com. It's going to be coming out today, where I wrote about this journey of exploration was so powerful. Last year, our theme was believe, and I thought that was overwhelmingly powerful. We did this whole segment on this I believe and really getting in touch with what do we believe. But this year is about exploration, which is, discovery and adventure and understanding. And I'm just moved by the whole thing and all these little rabbit holes it took me in. I loved it. I just loved it. And so we had, I don't know, probably over 700 again, but now we're also online. So we get 1,000 people online plus. And from that experience, we wanted to help girls. And so I guess, I don't know, 13, 12 years ago, we launched Generation WOW, which is a program for teen girls. It's a high touch program. So it's in schools here throughout this region and in South Florida and Orlando. We have clubs where 500 club girls just here in my community meet on a bi-weekly, monthly basis. We take them on trips. We really help them explore their life, building their adventures, opening them up to opportunities. So last week we brought them to a television station, and oh my goodness, tomorrow we're going to the Mayo Clinic's Innovation Center.
Wow.
Right? Like, it's really remarkable. I enjoy my time with these girls so much because they help me and just personally understand who they are and what we can be grateful for, because they have incredible passion and desire to succeed and do well, despite whatever's going on in their world and their families. I mean, that's part of it. And we deal with that with them. We help them. But you know what? They have dreams, right? They have vision. And that's what you want in a younger generation, right? They want to hope and build for themselves and the world around them.
You said you go down rabbit holes. I would say with the believe and exploration, I go down rabbi holes. And when you said the believe, it actually brings up my Maimonides 13 principles of belief, with ani ma'amin, that I believe. And actually it's Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, tomorrow evening.
Yes.
Sing ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema, I believe with my full belief.
Yes.
Coming the Messiah, but the last part I think is the most important part. Even though the Mashiach might not come yet, I still believe. And I still believe. Absolutely. It's a really important piece of the sports world too that I love. That right, the game's not over until the clock runs out, or the
or if you're a Chicago Cubs fan and they haven't won a game in 25. I mean, a pennant in 25 years or whatever it was, right?
And so that belief piece, not just like I believe, or that God made me hit that home run, but even through my mistakes, I believe that the next time can be better. And so combining those two. So when we combine those two pieces, we do get to the Maccabi Sports Collective. Tell us your intro into Maccabi and Israel's connection with sports for you, and then we'll get to what you're doing now, because I want to make sure people tune in for these next couple months and are able to help out the Maccabi Sports Collective, specifically the basketball, which Sinai Temple is.
Which would be great. Yeah. So I will say this: I didn't get to Israel until I played in the Maccabi. I didn't even know I had graduated from college. I played professional basketball. I actually had to apply to become an amateur again. Think about that. Isn't that funny? Because now everyone's a professional. And
I think I just want to stop there for 1 second. It's amazing that sports literally brought you to Israel. And when I talked to Coach Pearl, he said in 1982 he graduated Boston College. Tom Davis hired him. He was going to go to Israel, but he wanted to get his career going here. And it wasn't until 2009 where sports brought him to Israel. And he said, on this show, I will always be going to Israel at least once a year. And he's actually going next week. And so the fact that sports is the entry into Israel for so many thousands of Jews around the world now, I think is just an amazing moment.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, and that's what I got there. And, and I realized also that at the time I wasn't married and have kids, but I said, if I had kids, I'm going to make sure they get to Israel before I did, right? I wanted to make sure they got there. And I think I brought them right before their bar mitzvahs during Passover. I brought them there. And so now they have a deep connection with Israel too. And they also go back because of sports. So I went, I played for the USA. And my story is probably much different than any others. I don't think we probably have time. I didn't win a medal. We forfeited our ability to win a medal because the Israeli women felt they weren't being treated equitably or fairly.
Wow.
And they asked us if we would not compete in the last final game. And
Wow.
After much whatever hullabaloo, I can still see all the guys yelling. It's like a slow motion movie. We acquiesced. Because we felt that it wasn't right. And this was just so long ago. It was like, what a foretelling of where my life would go. I did not think that I would be connected in this way. 25 years later, I am sitting in the stands in Madison Square Garden, and a woman comes up to me with her Israeli accent. I immediately knew, you may not remember me, but I remember you. I will always remember what you did. Oh my God, yes, I'm crying. I'm crying even now.
Wow.
And so playing in the games was an extraordinary experience. I actually got an invitation. There was a West Bank community, oh my goodness, that was just forming, Ariel. I think it had 10,000 people there. My parents drove to see me play. They were hit by rocks on the way. I think it's a community of well over 100,000 now. But I decided I had to be grown up and get back to the States and go to work. Otherwise, maybe I'd be writing, telling you a different story. And ultimately, I became the commissioner of the WNBA. I was invited back to participate. I've been involved on the boards of Maccabi USA for 25 years in all different ways, from their marketing committee to our officers. And then this year, I decided that I would become the commissioner. Offered to become the commissioner of basketball. It's never been where we've had a unified, codified collective, if you will. And basketball is so important to so many Jewish kids, boys and girls across the world, but especially in America. And I thought how great it would be to build a community that can stay connected, whether they're in the Maccabi or not. It's a big, huge undertaking, bigger than I can accomplish right now. But we have 14 teams in our delegation going to Israel in July.
Amazing.
We are so grateful to be going to Israel in July. Actually, I'm going in May for a wedding, but I'll follow up for the Maccabi, a gathering that shows the world our unity and solidarity and love for a nation that plays such an important role in our world's history. And I'm excited for so many of these youngsters in every sport, not only basketball, although we need support in basketball, but the swimmers and the soccer players and the squash players and the judo athletes, all of them coming together to not only compete, but to find that spiritual connection with Judaism and also with other Jews around the world. Pretty powerful.
This is the first Maccabi Games after 10/7. I was just in Israel 5 weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to visit Kfar Maccabi. I'd never been there before. Isn't it cool? That was amazing. And Rabbi Adi Siner, who you know very well, a young man who graduates rabbinical school in America,
I love it.
To Israel and says, I want to now create a gap year program for sports, Israel Maccabi experience. For those of you who are interested in that, please reach out to me. And actually, Adi was here 2 weeks ago, and we took him on a tour of UCLA athletic facilities. And there we met Ido David, who's a senior on the UCLA volleyball team. And so this whole connection between diaspora and Jews through sports is a world in itself as well. And so what will this Maccabi team mean representing the United States, where we are facing so much anti-Semitism in our borders, with those Americans walking side by side with brothers and sisters in Israel who have been through so much since that fateful day on October 7th?
I think it'll be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be, as I had a call the other day with our Israeli leadership. The theme is now more than ever. And it's true, now more than ever. When you're in Israel as a Jew, you have a sense that you do not have anywhere else in the world. It highlights what you don't have anywhere else in the world. And it's not a sense of loss. It's just a sense that we are such a tiny people. Mm-hmm. Great strength and great impact. And I'm proud of that. But when you're there and everybody, for the most part, are Jews. I do want to add, though, 20% of the population is Arab. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, this country has shown it is the most diverse country in the world. Over 70 nationalities live in Israel. And for the most part, they live together side by side extraordinarily well until things are exacerbated in ways that are unforeseen. I think it will be incredibly powerful, not only for everyone who's there to experience it. And I know the Israelis are looking to welcome all of us from around the world with open arms. I think it's important for everyone in the world to see all of us in Israel as well. So I'm looking very much forward to it. It's a country that I have spent a great deal of time in of late because my son played professional basketball there. So I've been back and forth. I don't feel like a tourist. I feel like I live there and my heart's there. And if I'm not there for a while, I can miss it inside of me.
Yes.
And so I'm looking forward to going back. And we'll be celebrating a wedding there in a few weeks, and that will be lovely. And then I'll go back again for the games in July.
Well, if you do love it so much, tell us just some of your favorite parts of Israel when you go. What are the have-tos that you have to go to?
Oh my God. First of all, there's this cafe on Dizengoff Street who's like with a breakfast. That's right. Yeah. He'll just look at me. We're going. There's a cafe on Ben Yehuda Street that we love. It's called Under the Tree. And we always have to go under the tree. And but most of that's up in northern Tel Aviv. So, that's fine. So we definitely always have to do that. We have to walk on the Tayelet. Are you kidding me? Like, that's just the most amazing place. We love going down to Jaffa. The last time we were there, we stayed actually in Jaffa. It was amazing. I stopped eating meat a long time ago, but I might always make one exception for a great shawarma. And there's several places like that we absolutely love. And then, my family's there and I have friends there and I always love seeing them and being with them. And I love just walking. I love walking through the streets. They're beautiful. They're green. Each one of them has its own story. And I love being with, I'm going to go with my son. So I love being with my family when I'm there.
And it's interesting that you say, in terms of the Israel piece, the basketball also is a high level, and so many Americans, in fact, go there. One of my first guests on this show was Chelsea Hopkins, played at Duke and then played in Israel. Daisy Feeder, of course, who longtime Israeli or American, goes to Israel, plays many years, comes back here, trains at Sinai Temple. What are those, outside of the Maccabi games, what are those players who are not Jewish, what have you seen them get out of their experience playing in Israel and then coming back?
They love it. That's the other thing. Like, I would love to see Israel, like, it's a mecca for athletes who are Jewish, but I love this idea of making just Israel a mecca for athletes. It is such a beautiful country. It's so, it's all about living in the present. It's about being active. It's about being healthy, eating healthy, physically being healthy, walking, biking, running. People are out on the Tayelet till midnight, doing activity. And so I would love it to be like this global destination for sport. And I think we're going to get there. I mean, I had an amazing experience. I think I was part of the first diplomatic sports mission from America to Lebanon.
Wow. What year was that?
Yeah, I don't remember. Like probably 15 years ago, at least.
Wow.
And it was an extraordinary experience. And I'm still in touch with the coaches. I did a clinic up in the mountains, the Bekaa Valley.
Yep.
And we all sat around. I said, why can't you just walk over this border here? Why don't we do something in Israel? They say, no, we can't do that. But you know what? We're getting closer to that.
Yes.
And I think that would be remarkable because sport is an international language. You asked me started about the power of the ball. The ball is powerful because it speaks every language. It speaks Arabic, it speaks Hebrew, it speaks Chinese, it speaks German, it speaks English, right? It doesn't know the gender of the hands that hold it, right? Whether it's male or female or whatever, right? Sports is a uniter. And I was always, we're working on a project right now. It's called Women's Champions of Change, which will happen in Jerusalem at the beginning of the Maccabi.
Oh, wow.
Women from all over the world to talk about team building, community building through the lens of sport and why it's so important. And it reminds me that right after October 7th, I also I was the co-chair of the board of the UGA Sports for Youth Foundation, where we got calls from Israel and these kids who are in trauma, really trauma, coming out after October 7th. What did they want to do with them? They wanted to bring them into sports activities where there was community, where there was humanity, where there was togetherness, where they would feel a sense of normalcy in life. And so sports is a great uniter. I mean, forget it if you're a Jaguar fan or if you're a Rams fan. It is a uniter, right? And it brings people, it elevates nations, and it elevates our own human spirit and the connectivity between humans. And so I'm excited about this project, especially for women, as women's sports continue to grow around the world. But I also see it as a tool for interconnectivity among nations. And I think that's something we need now more than ever.
There's a great book by Dr. David Hollander from NYU, if you haven't read it, called I believe it's called How Basketball Can Save the World. It's amazing, and he speaks.
I'm writing that down right now. How basketball can save the world. Okay.
Yeah, he's amazing. He works in the sports department at NYU. So one last question before we have more of a closing serious question. It is the NBA playoffs right now. WNBA sort of starting. So I guess predictions in the NBA playoffs. Lakers had a tough one over the weekend. Maybe they had too much matzah, but now the Passover's over. They'll JJ Redick will maybe give them their chametz. But what's going on in the NBA, and what do you see for the WNBA for us to look out as the draft just happened?
Let's see. On the NBA side, I just I can't help, even though it's been hard to hope, but I can't help but being a longtime Knicks fan. You're a Lakers fan, I know that. And I'm just absolutely in love with Steph Curry. I love his game. I love the style. I love what he's done for the game. I love who he stands for, what he stands for, how he stands in, all of that. So I'm always watching the Warriors as well. And we'll see how it plays out, right? My friend's one of the owners of the Thunder. He said, all right, are we going to the Thunder game? It's a great time. It's a great time of year to watch great basketball. I mean, I watched the game last night. I was amazed by, I said to my son, they can actually play defense when they want. And it was amazing. It was really, really good stuff. As far as the WNBA, influx of a new team, right? The Valkyries coming in. It's really, really exciting. Hard for me to bet against the New York Liberty repeating. I love this team. I love the organization. But then again, I love them all. And so I think it will be competitive. There's so much great talent. And there'll be new heroes and heroines that will step up. I think Caitlin Clark's second year will be very telling. And Becker's coming in along with a lot of other talent. It's going to be great. I honestly think it's such great basketball to watch, right? It's competitiveness, it's skill set, the ability to shoot. I think it'll be great. I'm excited. I just said before, the Upshot League will follow in a year, which is a league that me and my partners at Sawyer Sports have decided to launch. We have 4 teams already announced. And it will be a place for us to help contribute to the growth of women's basketball, women's coaching, and building real community assets where communities can come around and really celebrate great entertainment around women's athletes in sport.
Oh, please count us in for that venture. And as a father of a 13-year-old daughter, just had her bat mitzvah, who is also found on the court often. It means so much for what you have done so that my daughter can have these opportunities as well. That's so as we conclude, tell us how we can help you with the Maccabi Sports Collective. We have Jews, we have non-Jews watching, we have sports lovers, we have people who Israel. Tell us
straight up, we have athletes from 16 on up who have been working hard. They've been named to USA teams, and they could use your support. We need to continue to raise money to help them, all of us, meet our ability to make sure these teams can compete. And then afterwards, we're hoping to have some money left over so that we can continue the connectivity of Jewish basketball throughout the United States. So any help to help these kids live their dreams, and it's even beyond their kids and their families, it's even the much broader impact.
Yes.
Being in Israel, the presence of being in Israel and competing is, you can say this for you, I can say it for me, it's life-changing.
Absolutely. And in fact, we usually say that they need us, but I would say we need them as much as they need us in this ever-changing world. But with people like you, with heroes like you who are empowering not just young women, but youth and all of us, I know that one day this pin will be taken off because there will be shalom. There will be peace within our walls, peace within our hearts and souls, because the magic of that ball. Donna Orender, we're so happy to have you on Rabbi on the Sidelines, former president of WNBA, senior executive of PGA, CEO of Generation W, this year commissioner of Collective Maccabi Basketball, and a friend of Sinai Temple. Donna, it's so great to have you.
Shalom.
Have a great day.
Thanks.